What I'm going to talk about is this waterfall in front of you here. This is a natural bass barrier in the Olifant-Doring system, and specifically in the Bido River. The significance of this barrier is that this prevents the upward movement of black bass in this river. And above this waterfall you basically get all the native species. In this river there's 5 native species above this barrier, and all of these native species are threatened. Below this barrier you'll only find larger specimens of some of the native that's too large to be predated on by the black bass, but you'll find no redfins and small or juvenile fish of the larger species below this barrier. Currently there's 22 tributaries invaded by black bass, and the upper limit of the black bass are always demarcated by either a cascade, waterfall or a chute. As part of my study I've measured all these natural barriers that stop the upward movement of black bass, and the average height of these barriers are 1.1 meter. But there's quite a few barriers that's around about 70 to 80 centimeters. So according to my study, 80 centimeter vertical drop can stop black bass. So this is quite significant for future rehabilitation projects where you want to construct the artificial barrier. We now know that it doesn't have to be higher than 80 centimeters, and we also know that the native fish can pass that barrier, but black bass can't pass over that barrier. And above this barrier the native fish is only limited to the stretch of less than 1 kilometer up to a 7-meter waterfall. Below this barrier the invaded area invaded by black bass is more than 30 kilometers. So the aim of this project is to reclaim this invaded 30 kilometers, get rid of all the alien fish, and eventually only have native fish in 31 kilometers in the Bido River. What we're going to do for the first phase of this project is to construct artificial barrier 6 kilometers downstream of this waterfall, and then use a pesticide to eradicate the bass up to that barrier. And so the black bass will still be below that barrier, but they can't get past that barrier. So effectively we reclaim 6 kilometers of the river for the native fish. For the second phase we want to build another barrier right at the confluence with the Doring River. So that's another 24 kilometers downstream. So that in total then it will reclaim more than 30 kilometers of the Bido River for native fish.
I work for the Endangered Wildlife Trust Cape Critical Rivers project. Basically, just to give you a little bit of background, what we've got happening in this system at the moment is where the Bido River joins the Doring River, we've got adult sandfish which naturally migrate up the Bido River and other smaller tributaries to spawn at the beginning of summer. And unfortunately what's happening at the moment in the downstream sections of these rivers is those sections are invaded by the predatory and alien invasive species, bass and bluegills. So all those juveniles every year are basically not getting the opportunity to recruit because these tributaries dry out and those juvenile fish are forced into the mainstream and they're just gobbled up by all the alien fish. So our surveys have shown that we're basically getting no recruitment, so none of the juveniles are getting to the adult stage. So part of the EWT, this component of the project is to take some of those juvenile fish from those downstream reaches and to actually translocate them, to move them up into this indigenous zone where you don't have that predatory pressure from the alien fish species. We've only got the indigenous fish species up here, and that'll hopefully give those juveniles the opportunity to recruit and contribute towards the adult population in the Doring mainstem in the long term. So the first thing we need to do before we're obviously kind of influencing the system, we're kind of implementing an intervention in the system. So importantly, there's already sandfish in this part of the river, so it's not that we're introducing a new system, but we obviously want to know how the introduction of these juvenile sandfish are going to impact the current fish community, because we also don't want to negatively impact the current indigenous fish population. So what we need to do is first establish a baseline of what's happening in this part of the river. So what we're doing with the netting is we're getting an accurate idea of the current fish population in this section of the river. So the netting will tell us what species are present here, and also importantly it will tell us the relative abundance between the different species. So what we'd expect to happen once we start introducing sandfish is, obviously for the sandfish, if it's successful, we'll start getting more sandfish relative to the other species. But we also need to look out for indicators that we're having a negative impact. So for example, if we start seeing a reduction in the catch per unit effort in other species, then that maybe is a warning sign that the sandfish are having some kind of competitive impact on the other indigenous fish species. And also, not that it should, these are all unlikely. What will likely happen is that the other species will stay kind of in proportion and you'll just get an addition of sandfish. But also something that's important to monitor is the size class distribution. So you want to see that there's still the full size class distribution of the other species. So you're not affecting, for example, if they're having a heavy impact on the food source, possibly you could influence recruitment or something of one of the other species. So those are the kind of indicators of concern that we're looking for.
Okay, so this is the Klein William yellowfish. It's the adult, this is a juvenile, and the adults grow up to 1 meter in length. They're the biggest fish in the catchment. In the mainstem rivers they grow very big. It's the iconic species of the Olifants and Doring river systems, much sought after by anglers, and like the rest of the fish in this system, endangered. It's classified by the IUCN as vulnerable, but it probably should be considered endangered. As I said, this is a small one. Unlike the redfin and the sawfin barb, it doesn't have that serrated dorsal. It has a much flatter snout than the sawfin, and it's more of a golden color than the sawfin, and that's how you would distinguish smaller specimens. When they grow much bigger, the difference is much more significant.